It began in a quiet room. No flashing cameras, no royal titles, just familiar faces who had known each other for years. Among them sat Serena Williams, calm, private, the kind of woman who rarely needed to speak to be understood. The conversation drifted from one light topic to another. Laughter filled the air, soft and easy. But then, a whisper cut through the room like glass. It wasn't about tennis. It wasn't about fashion. And it wasn't even about the royal life that one of their friends had married into. It was about something far smaller, and yet far more explosive. Meghan Markle's real age. At first, no one reacted. Just another rumor. But when those words reached Serena's ears, something shifted. Her expression froze. Her body leaned back ever so slightly. Then came the question. Quiet, but heavy enough to silence the room. How did she have kids? It wasn't said in anger. It wasn't said with spite. It was confusion. Disbelief. The kind of question that makes you realize the story you thought you knew might not be the full story at all. And because it came from Serena, someone known for grace, discipline, and being close to Meghan, it wasn't dismissed as idle gossip. It hit like a shockwave. The energy in the room changed instantly. Smiles faded. Conversations died down. And suddenly, Meghan's picture-perfect timeline didn't feel so perfect anymore. Before we go further, ask yourself this. Why would someone as respected as Serena Williams freeze at a simple whisper? What did she notice that others had missed? And more importantly, what would make her question something so fundamental, so personal, about her close friend? But before we break this down, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Because once you see what's coming in this story, you won't look at Meghan and Harry's timeline the same way again. Now, let's rewind. Let's go back to where the cracks in Meghan's story first began to appear. To understand Serena's question, we have to rewind to the very beginning. Back to Meghan's official story, the biography that millions of people accepted as fact. According to public records, Meghan Markle was born in August 1981. She graduated from Northwestern University in 2003 at the age of 22. A clean, neat timeline. Everything lined up on paper. But here's the problem with neat stories, they don't always survive scrutiny. When people began combing through Northwestern's archives, strange details emerged. In old yearbook photos, Meghan appeared in the salsa club, smiling in the back row. At first glance, it was normal. She looked like any other college student, bright, confident, carefree. But the people around her? They didn't seem to be 21 or 22 like her supposed classmates. Many of them were born in the early 1970s, nearly a decade before Meghan's claimed graduation year. Public records showed that some of these individuals had finished high school as early as 1988 or 1989. That didn't line up with Meghan's supposed 1999 high school graduation. And yet, they weren't random strangers. These names appeared again and again in newsletters, alumni notes, and club announcements. They were part of her circle. So, if Meghan truly was 22 in 2003, why was she constantly surrounded by people almost 10 years older? That's where cracks began to form. Because when timelines don't align with documents, it stops being rumor and starts being record. And this is where Serena's reaction suddenly made sense. She has known Meghan for years. She's been present through milestones, celebrations, and headlines. She knows the official story, but she also knows Meghan as a friend. So when she heard the whisper about Meghan's real age, her mind did the math instantly. And the numbers didn't work. Her question, how did she have kids, wasn't about malice. It was about instinct. The same instinct that helps her read an opponent's serve before the ball leaves their hand. That pause, that freeze, wasn't just doubt. It was recognition. Because if the age was off, then everything that came after, the pregnancies, the timelines, the public milestones, would all need to be re-examined. But Meghan's age was just the beginning. The real storm came when her pregnancy was announced. Photos appeared on glossy magazine covers. Headlines screamed with joy. Cameras followed her every step. Yet, behind the celebration, something strange began to surface. Backhand index pointing right, but before we get to that shocking chapter, let me ask you this: do you think Meghan's age timeline really adds up? Or are these just coincidences? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Backhand index pointing down, and don't forget to like this video. It helps us keep uncovering stories the mainstream media won't touch. Now, let's talk about the bump. Because once Meghan's pregnancy became public, the whispers turned into something much louder. When Meghan Markle first announced her pregnancy, it was framed as a moment of joy. A royal baby. A new chapter. The continuation of a dynasty. The press went wild. Every headline glowed with warmth. Every magazine cover beamed with her smiling face. But not everyone was celebrating. Some people were watching and noticing things that didn't add up. It began with small details. Every public appearance seemed to feature Meghan with her hand pressed firmly across her stomach. Again and again and again. More than any expectant mother the cameras had ever captured before. At first, it was dismissed as protective, a sweet gesture from a woman carrying her first child. But as the weeks passed, the frequency became unusual. Almost performative. As if the gesture itself was part of the show. Then came the clip. The moment that would ignite thousands of online discussions, freeze frames, and slow-motion replays. Meghan walking into a studio, smiling at the cameras, wearing a cream-colored dress. She bends slightly to sit down. And for just a fraction of a second, her baby bump folds inward. The video spread like wildfire. Some called it an optical illusion. Others swore it was proof of something much bigger, a pregnancy that wasn't quite what it seemed. Because bumps don't fold. Not like that. The whispers turned into open questions. Was Meghan really pregnant? Or was there something else happening behind palace walls? And if there was even the smallest chance the bump wasn't real, then Serena's question suddenly sounded prophetic: how did she have kids? Royal experts tried to shut it down. Tabloids wrote articles mocking the conspiracy. But the more they pushed back, the more people noticed other strange details. Meghan's bump seemed to change shape from one appearance to another. Some days it was high, round, and firm. Other days it appeared flatter, softer, almost lower on her body. Photos placed side by side didn't look like the same pregnancy. And while pregnancies can vary, the inconsistencies kept piling up. There was also the issue of timing. The official due dates didn't always match the visible bump size. Announcements seemed carefully orchestrated, sometimes at odds with the natural progression people expected. And Meghan's behavior? Always cradling, always drawing attention to her belly, even when protocol would have suggested a more reserved posture. For her supporters, it was simply a woman embracing motherhood. But for skeptics, it was evidence that the belly needed constant reinforcement, not physical, but visual. A signal. A reminder. A message. Because in the world of royalty, appearances are everything. And if the appearance itself was questioned, then the institution would face a storm unlike anything before. This was the moment the whispers transformed into a global conversation. Clips circulated. Forums buzzed. Analysts dissected every frame like detectives studying evidence. And through it all, one question refused to disappear. If the bump was staged, then who carried the royal children? Before we reveal the theories, take a moment to subscribe if you haven't already. Trust me, what's coming next will make you rethink everything about Meghan and Harry's carefully crafted story. And if you're enjoying this breakdown, give this video a quick thumbs up, it helps push the truth further into the spotlight. Because the next chapter? It isn't just about optics. It's about biology. It's about possibility. And it's about secrets that no royal family wants exposed. By the time Meghan's bump had made headlines worldwide, the questions could no longer be contained. Theories began to surface, theories the palace never wanted to acknowledge. The loudest one? Surrogacy. It was whispered in online forums, dissected in gossip columns, and debated in late-night conversations. The claim wasn't that Meghan didn't want children. The claim was that she couldn't, at least not in the traditional way. For believers of this theory, the folding bump wasn't a glitch. It was a clue. A signal that the real pregnancy was happening elsewhere, quietly, behind the walls of strict confidentiality. Then came Archie's birth in May 2019. Instead of following centuries-old royal protocol, the hospital steps, the proud parents, the ceremonial photo, Meghan and Harry did something different. No flashing bulbs. No press on standby. The announcement came hours later, controlled, polished, carefully edited. And that choice set off alarms. Because royal births have always been about visibility. About proof. About showing the public that the line of succession is real and secure. But Meghan and Harry broke that tradition. And in breaking it, they fueled the rumors that maybe, just maybe, there was something to hide. The whispers grew louder when Lilibet was born in June 2021. This time, Meghan wasn't in the UK. She was in California, far from the structures and traditions of the British monarchy. No public appearances before or after. No visible pregnancy progression captured by the paparazzi. It was as if Lilibet simply arrived, announced in a statement, celebrated in headlines, but invisible in the journey that should have led to her. For critics, this wasn't coincidence. It was pattern. 2 children. 2 timelines. And still no traditional evidence. Even small details added fuel to the fire. Some reports claimed inconsistencies in hospital records. Others pointed to the secrecy surrounding birth certificates. Royal insiders tried to wave it all away as privacy, as Meghan and Harry's desire to live differently. But for those who remembered Serena's haunting question, how did she have kids? The secrecy looked less like protection and more like confirmation. Because in the world of royalty, privacy is rare. And when privacy surrounds the very foundation of lineage, the doubts only deepen. Serena, of course, never repeated her words publicly. She never addressed the rumor again. But the freeze, the pause, the weight of her question still echoes. And that's why the theory of surrogacy refuses to disappear. It's not built on one clip, one gesture, or one rumor. It's built on years of inconsistencies. A timeline that bends but doesn't quite break. A story that sounds right until you look closely. And when you look closely, the gaps are impossible to ignore. If you've stayed with us this far, you're clearly someone who loves digging deeper than the headlines. So do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button now. And join our community that uncovers the stories others won't dare to tell. And if you think this video deserves it, drop a like. Because the final part of this series is coming next. And it's the one that ties everything together. Because in the end, this isn't just about Meghan Markle. It's about power, image, and the cost of keeping a royal secret. Every royal story has layers. At the surface, it's about glamour, gowns, jewels, ceremonies that stretch back centuries. But beneath the surface, it's always about power. About image. About controlling the narrative. And that's what makes Meghan Markle's journey so polarizing. For her supporters, she represents change. A woman who walked into an ancient institution and dared to do things differently. Who rejected outdated traditions, demanded privacy, and insisted on rewriting the royal playbook. But for her critics, those same choices don't look like progress. They look like deflection. They look like secrets. And secrets, in the royal world, are dangerous. Because the monarchy isn't just about individuals. It's about lineage. Bloodlines. Proof that every title, every crown, every future heir has a legitimate, documented place in history. When Meghan and Harry stepped outside of tradition, when they refused the hospital steps, when they shielded the birth process, when the timelines didn't align, they didn't just frustrate the press. They unsettled the very foundation of what makes royalty believable. And that's why the whispers of surrogacy, the questions about age, the infamous folding bump, still linger. Because even if none of it is true, the damage is already done. Once doubt enters the royal narrative, it never fully leaves. Serena Williams likely never intended to spark a conspiracy. She wasn't giving a statement. She wasn't writing a headline. She was simply reacting, in real time, to a whisper that didn't fit with the friend she knew. But her question, how did she have kids, became the question that millions now echo. Not because Serena repeated it. Not because the palace confirmed it. But because the timeline itself never erased it. And that's the danger of rumors. They don't need proof to live. They just need cracks. And once the cracks appear, the truth, whatever it may be, is forever doubted. Today, Meghan and Harry live thousands of miles from Buckingham Palace. They raise Archie and Lilibet in California. Far from royal photographers. Far from rigid tradition. And yet, their every move is still watched. Still analyzed. still dissected for clues. Because in choosing a different life, they didn't escape the spotlight. They magnified it. Every absence, every mystery, every unspoken detail becomes another puzzle piece. And maybe that's why the story endures. Not because people hate Meghan. Not because they love gossip. But because the royal family itself has always been built on trust. The trust that what you see is real. That the heirs are born of the bloodline they claim. Once that trust is questioned, the crown itself begins to wobble. So perhaps the real story isn't whether Meghan used a surrogate, or whether her age is different than official records suggest. Perhaps the real story is how quickly the royal illusion collapses when the details don't quite fit. And in that sense, Meghan Markle has done what no one else could. She has revealed just how fragile the monarchy's image really is. Before you leave, tell me in the comments, do you believe Meghan's story? Or do you think the whispers carry truth? And don't forget, if you want more deep dives into royal secrets and celebrity scandals, hit that subscribe button right now. Join our growing community, because the next story we uncover may be even bigger than this one. Because in the end, every empire is only as strong as the stories people believe. And right now, Meghan Markle's story is the one the world can't stop questioning.